ESPN dropped a 2-round 2025 NFL mock draft earlier this week, and I wanted to react to the two prospects landing in Miami, and they will shock you. They're actually two players that I would not pick personally at those two respective slots. We'll break it all down. I'm Nic Rohloff from Dolphins Today, but make sure you do follow us on Instagram. At Dolphins Today IG is our handle. We will have you covered throughout the entire NFL draft process and on actual draft weekend with the YouTube channel, but also post short form content, news, rumors on our Instagram. So if you want wall to wall 365 coverage on the Miami Dolphins, make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you're following our Instagram at Dolphins Today IG. All right, let's jump right into it because with the first pick that the Dolphins own in the draft, it's 13th overall, unless they trade up or down. Matt Miller of ESPN had the Dolphins drafting an offensive lineman, Armand Membou, the O-lineman from Mizzouri. And this is an intriguing name. He's very versatile. And I've actually been a fan of Membou for a while. If you actually can turn back the clocks, there is evidence that I liked Membou for quite a while. Because 3 months ago, the first ever mock draft I did for the Miami Dolphins, Dolphins Mock Draft 1.0. You see it right here 3 months ago. I had Armand Membou as a target for the Dolphins in the second and third rounds. Now his stock has risen since I did this mock draft into potentially a round one pick. You also see Tyler Booker there in the second and third round. He's now potentially a first rounder as well. But Membou is someone that I've targeted as a good option for Miami all the way back in early November and October when the Dolphins were struggling. Matt Miller on Membou to Miami said that the Dolphins' main priority in 2025 should be giving quarterback Tua Tagovailoa more protection. Protecting from the inside out is crucial, and Miami has a hole at right guard. Well, they also do at left guard. Membou played right tackle at Mizzou and is an excellent mover in the run game at 6'4" and 332 pounds, making him perfect for the Dolphins' run scheme. Some scouts believe he is the best pure tackle in the class, so kicking him outside in the future could be an option if current right tackle Austin Jackson leaves after his contract expires in 2 seasons. And Matt Miller was not lying. Membou has risen up boards as of late as potentially one of the top offensive linemen, if not the top offensive lineman. You see his PFF numbers from a year ago at Mizzouri. He was terrific. No sacks allowed. The grades are fantastic. And the reason why Membou is becoming such an intriguing prospect is that athleticism that he has displayed. And I will be fascinated to see what he does at the NFL Combine, assuming that he goes through the 40 and all the other things, and he puts that athleticism even more on display. It might even elevate his stock in the NFL draft even more. But before we get into more surrounding Membou, just based off first glance, do you like the pick? Would you take Armand Membou, the offensive lineman from Mizzouri, at 13 overall? Type D if you would draft him, type P if you would pass. I said this 3 months ago when I talked about Armand Membou as a day 2 target for the Miami Dolphins, but his versatility makes him an intriguing target. He could play right guard. I think he could play left guard. He can play right tackle. Austin Jackson could kick inside the right guard if you wanted to play Membou at right tackle as well. So you would have a lot of different options on your offensive line if you ultimately picked Membou at number 13. And Matt Miller's point on the run scheme is exactly why I think the Dolphins will have him relatively high on their draft board, because his ability to get out in open space, get his hands on linebackers, on members of the secondary, is something that is valued quite a bit for Mike McDaniel. We see how many times they try to get to the perimeter using Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Devon Achane, Jalen Wright. You need to have some athletic offensive linemen that can get to the second level quickly. I think Armand Membou fits that mold and would be a target for the Miami Dolphins in the NFL draft. But the reason why I would kind of stay away from this a little bit, I think right now, and things can change. Let's be honest. It's early February. We still got to go through the NFL Combine. We still got to go through meetings, visits, the whole 9 yards. But as things currently stand, for me, Armand Membou at 13 might be a little rich. I think it might be a little too high. Now, I'm going to continue to look at offensive linemen, do some film analysis, some scouting, reading up on these prospects. But as things currently stand, I think 13 is a little bit high for Membou. I like Will Campbell a lot more. There's some other offensive linemen that intrigue me, like Tyler Booker from Alabama as a pure offensive guard. Membou is a solid NFL draft prospect, but things stand right now, I'm holding off potentially on him at 13, but I have seen some people mock him as high as 10 or 11 to the Chicago Bears or San Francisco 49ers. And coming up in just a second, we are going to take a look at who the Dolphins had going to them in the second round of this ESPN mock draft. But I do got to give some major love to our sponsor on today's show that made this show possible, and that is PrizePicks, the #1 daily fantasy sports platform and app in North America. The big game is almost here. Don't miss out on the last football game of the season with PrizePicks, the best place to win cash while watching the big game. PrizePicks is giving away a free pick as well, where all you need to do is pick more than on Patrick Mahomes, half a passing yard. And if you pair that up with one more stat projection and are correct, you can win real cash. Also, make sure to check out the promos tab to tell any of the PrizePicks Super Sweat Millie winners big game lineups. If you tell a lineup that goes 3 for 3, you could win a split of $1 million in promo funds. PrizePicks also offers weekly promotions that can lead to big payouts like Taco Tuesday. Each Tuesday, PrizePicks discounts select player projections up to 25% to provide even more value for your lineups. Join me and millions of others playing PrizePicks on a daily basis. Download the app and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. One more time, download the app today and use code CLNS to get $50 instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. PrizePicks. Run your game. We're sticking in the trenches with the second round pick Miami has in the top 50, 48th overall. ESPN's Matt Miller had Miami selecting TJ Sanders, the defensive lineman from South Carolina, someone who has really not popped up on my radar as a Dolphins draft target, at least at this point in the pre-draft process. But after looking at him, I could see why. Matt Miller said that losing Christian Wilkins in 2023 NFL free agency, 2024 free agency, hurt the Dolphins so that they get a replacement for him here. Sanders is a 3-technique pass rusher with awesome first step quickness and a similar build to Christian Wilkins at 6'4", 284 pounds. Interior defensive line is an underrated need for the Miami Dolphins. Last season, they had Zach Sealer, Calais Campbell, Benito Jones, Deshaun Ham as their rotation. But the reason why it is such a need for Miami in this offseason is because you simply don't have anybody on the roster right now. The only player under contract on the defensive line interiorly for the Miami Dolphins, I don't think that's a word, by the way, is Zach Sealer. Calais Campbell, free agent. Benito Jones, Deshaun Hand, all free agents. So you need to address the depth behind Sealer as well as that D lineman too next to Zach, either through the draft or NFL free agency. Now, there is a chance they go the cheap route in free agency, try to bring back Benito Jones, Deshaun Hand, and Calais Campbell, have the whole band back together for another year. And I actually wouldn't hate it. It wouldn't be the worst thing in the world, considering that they actually played much better than I would have expected them to do on the run game, that is. Pass rush could be better, but they were actually pretty solid in the run game. But we'll talk more about TJ Sanders here in just a second. But I do want to get your thoughts. What's the biggest need for the Miami Dolphins? Is it getting more depth at defensive line? Is it the interior offensive line? Is it the safety room, who we didn't take any in the first 2 rounds of this ESPN mock draft? Let me know what the biggest need for the Miami Dolphins is down in the comment section. TJ Sanders, he could certainly do it all. I think he is probably a better pass rusher on the interior than a run stopper, and that's kind of showcased by his frame, 6'4", 330, not as kind of big and as much as a run stuffer as you'd like. Excuse me, he's 284 pounds, by the way. So he's a little bit smaller, but he uses that quickness and athleticism to help get after the passer. Now, you could also bring Calais Campbell back, which would eliminate the need of drafting an interior defensive lineman maybe so high in the first 2 rounds. But with 10 overall picks, you're surely going to use some of them on the defensive line. And Campbell was so good last season. It's going to be fascinating to see what his market's like and if he would return to Miami because he probably wants to win a Super Bowl if he does ultimately continue to play football and not retire. Sanders is a fascinating name. I'd also, if you think about it, I don't think they'll go defensive line in the first round of the draft, but there are a lot of good defensive tackles in this draft. Walter Nolan from Ole Miss, Kenneth Grant, Mason Graham, both of those guys from Michigan. I would expect Kenneth Grant to be someone Miami potentially targets. 13 might be a little too high, but he's similar to Christian Wilkins in terms of his ability to be versatile in the run game, pass game, and be athletic. Just some names to keep an eye on here early in the NFL draft process. And you saw the title, and the title of this video is that Dolphins fans might be shocked by this mock draft. And I don't think that's misleading in a way because these are two prospects that I don't think would be on a lot of Dolphins fans' radars for the first two picks in this draft because there's other offensive linemen available that might be more highly touted. And TJ Sanders is someone that we haven't talked about. I don't really love the value, to be honest, of this 2-round mock draft by Matt Miller. But there's a long way to go. Maybe these two guys rise in the draft process and are top targets by the Miami Dolphins. But I also want to make this abundantly clear as well. It's fun to talk about the draft and team needs and stuff like that. But NFL free agency dictates so much because you see how the plan is, the process. Do they sign two offensive linemen on big deals? Well, if they do sign two interior offensive linemen on 2-3-year deals, you probably don't need to draft one at 13th overall. So NFL free agency really dictates where teams will go for the NFL draft. So you do have to stay subscribed and stay tuned because when the Dolphins make a move, we'll have you covered with a video. So hit that sub button because we'll have the best content all off season long surrounding the Miami Dolphins.